The Galactic Coliseum floated in high orbit like a jeweled ulcer over the gas giant Dreshkar 4, a hideously expensive bauble meant to prove the Empire's sophistication by burning currency into nothing but spectacle. It pulsed with a light show that triggered seizures in 9 species and reverence in 3. Flags unfurled in vacuum, each woven from the skin silk of domesticated moonworms, announcing today's main event, the grand final of the Interstellar Martial Exhibition, an elaborate name for a blood sport refined for diplomatic plausibility. Inside, the air was adjusted every 40 seconds to match a random attendee's home biosphere. A mist of copper-scented moisture hissed from one vent. A second later, the humidity dropped and the temperature spiked with the dry heat of a desert on Telzur. Creatures chattered, clicked, bellowed, and hummed, all compressed through translator mods that rendered every exclamation into bland, market-approved speech. And today, the betting circuit sizzled. Seated in a gravity-stabilized arena box, a 6-eyed mollusk in ceremonial chains of contract platinum whispered to its aide, "Why is the human even allowed to compete?" The aide, a sentient cluster of mist with monocle affixed via static charge, replied matter-of-factly, "Token gesture of inclusion. It amuses the others. They call it demonstrating cultural diversity before crushing it." On the floor below, the arena reshaped itself with orgasmic mechanical glee. Terrain shifted. Metal crags folded out of smooth walls. A pool of gelatinous acid bubbled to life, and a wind turbine the size of a freighter blade rotated lazily above. It was, by all known metrics, a terrible place to be alive. Hovering midair, an enormous hollow projector pulsed to life with shimmer that suggested nausea in several light spectrums. The commentator emerged, a silvery centipede-like creature with human lips awkwardly affixed near its thorax. Known as ZXDHHH broadcast, it was the most beloved voice in galactic entertainment, mostly because no one could figure out what it actually looked like. Greetings, dominant and subjugated life forms. ZXDHHH boomed. Its voice translated simultaneously into 197 dialects, including dead languages for nostalgic flavor. Today's match features the undefeated champion of Quadrant 6, the Colossus of Carnage, the Crown Prince of Pulverization, Druin of the Bone Herders. The crowd erupted. A pod of helium-throated avians burst into synchronized shrieks that formed a spiral pattern in midair. Somewhere near the back, a lava-dwelling sentient tried to ignite itself in celebration, but was politely restrained by fire-retardant drones. And opposing him, ZXDHHH paused, the theatrical silence deliberately extended by 3 seconds for maximum discomfort. Representing the pale, underdeveloped mudball known as Earth, Ellie Tran, unaffiliated marksman and first-time participant. The laughter was polite, pitying, even, on most galactic streams. Ellie's profile had already been reduced to a holographic joke, a bipedal, squishy anomaly wrapped in soft armor and sarcasm. Her stats were mocked: no exoskeletal reinforcement, no toxin glands, no prehensile appendages or augmented sonar, merely eyes, limbs, and the profound audacity of participation. Ellie Tran sat in the prep chamber, fingers laced loosely in her lap. She didn't look at the monitors displaying her odds of survival, currently listed as abysmal but comedically so. She wasn't smiling, nor was she angry. She just watched the dust swirling under the intake vent, calculating its path like a soft equation scrawled across time. A handler approached, a nervous creature with translucent skin and the general demeanor of a creature not built for confrontation. "Miss Tran, may I just say it's an honor to watch history be briefly made," the handler offered with diplomatic optimism. Ellie blinked slowly. "I'm sure you say that to all the martyrs." "Oh, no, not at all," it said, blinking 3 sets of eyelids out of sync. "Some don't even last until the buzzer." She rolled her neck, slow and deliberate. The cervical joint popped. Somewhere across the Coliseum, a translator glitched and interpreted the sound as a mating signal. Outside, the pre-fight rituals began. Druin entered the field with the subtlety of an orbital bombardment. Each footfall cracked the adaptive flooring. He let out a roar that triggered 7 panic attacks and a spontaneous birth in the crowd. His ceremonial armor gleamed, woven from the femurs of extinct predators and spattered with something that still steamed. Druin raised his arms and bellowed in a dialect not spoken aloud since the conquest of Archiprime. I offer my body to war and my victory to the ancestors. Ellie walked onto the field 5 seconds late. Sipping from a cup, the crowd quieted. She finished the drink, crushed the cup, and dropped it in her pocket. Littering came with a fine. ZXDHHH's voice rang out. The human appears calm, or concussed, or perhaps resigned to her fate. It is difficult to distinguish with this species. The gravity field flickered. The arena locked into final shape. A canyon cut by industrial wind. Terrain staggered with random elevation. 0 stable sniper zones. Ellie squinted upward. Light refracted weirdly at the top. Some kind of distortion meant to prevent projectile stability. She cracked her knuckles. Took a slow breath. 1 heartbeat. 2. ZXDHHH cried out, "Begin!" Druin charged. Ellie didn't move. Yet, above, in the VIP lounge, a diplomatic envoy from Earth, a rotund bureaucrat named Darnell Vix, sipped overpriced algae wine and murmured, "They warned them." They really did. Beside him, a Zelvian admiral scoffed. What could you possibly mean? Darnell watched as Ellie dropped to one knee and let her hand brush the ground. Not for balance, but measurement. "They warned you," he said again, "about our snipers." The prep chamber was cold in a way that only artificial environments manage, pristine, metallic, scrubbed of scent and soul. Ellie Tran sat alone beneath a halo of sterilizing light, boots resting flat on the alloy floor, fingers absently tracing the edge of the bench like she was feeling for cracks in memory. Her rifle leaned against the wall to her right, cloaked in compliance gel and red tag for transport. It didn't look like much. Nothing about her did. She wore the standard-issue bodysuit, charcoal gray, pressure-regulated, with one sleeve rolled up to her elbow and the other bearing a tear at the seam. Her gloves were mismatched. One was new, too stiff. The other was old and faded, the fabric worn thin at the trigger finger. She had replaced it because she didn't need to. She'd stopped needing many things. Across the room, the security panel buzzed and a door irised open with the softest of bureaucratic efficiency. In stepped her liaison, Dr. Kilvith Erwin, a member of the Academic Guild of Competitive Peacekeeping, a species that resembled a disappointed seahorse wrapped in velvet robes. He carried a clipboard. He always carried a clipboard. Ellie suspected it was surgically attached. "Miss Tran," he said with a strained tone of someone who dislikes speaking in single syllables, "I must, by protocol, inform you that all projections indicate a defeat ratio of 99.97%, barring celestial interference or a sudden outbreak of empathy." Ellie raised an eyebrow. "So you're saying there's a chance?" Kilvith blinked his 3 eyes asynchronously. "You remain inexplicably casual in the face of likely evisceration." "I'm consistent," she said. "You people like consistency." "We are not a you people, Miss Tran. We are the stewards of order." "Stewards?" "Right. That's the word you use when you're feeding someone into a meat grinder with extra ceremony." Kilvith frowned. It was hard to tell on a face composed primarily of cartilage and dignity, but she'd learned to spot the twitch near his gill ridge. "Your sarcasm is not helping your chances." "It's not supposed to." He opened his mouth, closed it, glanced at the clipboard. "Well, the audience appreciates novelty. Your presence, if nothing else, provides aesthetic contrast. I'm the comic relief before the monster wins." "Precisely." Ellie stood. Not fast, not slow, just enough. She walked to the wall, disengaged the weapon lock, and took her rifle in hand like it was a ritual, quiet, deliberate, necessary. There were no power cells, no chemical magazines. The weapon interfaced directly with her optic implant and responded to micromuscle signals. It wasn't meant to intimidate. It was meant to be invisible until the last possible moment. Kilvith adjusted his collar. "Why did you volunteer for this?" She looked at him. No smile, just stillness. "I didn't," she said. That shut him up. For a second, then the clipboard reasserted control. Then conscription under the Strategic Representation Mandate. She nodded. Clause 14B. Earth defaulted on diplomatic fines. This was a compromise. Kilvith paused. You do realize they did not expect you to survive, yes? Neither did I, she said softly. The lights above flickered, signaling pre-match procession. She stepped into the decontamination field, let the pulses scan her spine, trace her vertebrae, catalog her threat level as moderate, organic, inconvenient. The computer voice warned her that accidental victory would result in a review of her classification status. She didn't laugh. It wasn't funny anymore. Outside, the crowd roared, or bubbled, or vibrated, or communed via phenomenal burst. Ellie couldn't tell. The walls were thick enough to mute most species' expressions of excitement, but she could still feel it in her sternum, the hum of sentient anticipation. They'd come for carnage. They always did. As she exited the chamber, a priest of the Florid Ascension waved her down, holding a vial of glittering spores. I offer a blessing upon your secondary stomach, it said, voice like wind through reeds. Ellie stopped, tilted her head. I don't have a secondary stomach. Oh, the priest said, disappointed. Then may your waist glands remain unruptured. Appreciated. She kept walking. The corridor narrowed into a launch platform, with a soft vibration beneath her boots as gravity modulation kicked in. Up ahead, the light from the arena spilled in, bright, artificial, soaked in color that made everything seem unreal. She could see the edge of the crowd now, their shapes folding into themselves, eye stalks and mandibles and gaseous projections waving like banners. A countdown appeared in the air before her. 5, 4. She took one breath, not to calm herself, just to remember she still could. 3. She thought of her old unit. Gone. Dust. None of them would have shown up for this. None were left. 2. She let her muscles loosen. She didn't need tension. She needed timing. 1. The platform shot her upward like a bullet. She landed at the edge of the arena, boots hissing against the frictionless plate, rifle slung behind her shoulder. She didn't pose. She didn't wave. She just stood there and looked at Druin, the living monument to overcompensation. He was larger up close. Of course he was. Plates of bone fused a muscle. Ceremonial tusks sharpened to a molecular edge. He wore blood like it was perfume. He laughed when he saw her. Not maliciously, just incredulously. This is the Empire's tribute, he thundered. This breeze of a creature? Ellie didn't reply. She just looked at him. Druin bent low, pawing at the ground. Do you know how many I've ended human? She shrugged. Probably not enough. The crowd loved that. Or at least the broadcast did. She heard the spike in translation feeds. The laughter coded into commercial breaks. She took 2 steps forward, just enough to enter the light. ZXDHHH's voice came from above. Combatants acknowledged. Conditions stabilized. Spectacle engaged. The arena warped again. The ground rippled. Spires jutted up like broken teeth. The wind roared with artificial menace. Ellie looked at her feet, then up at Druin. He grinned. You'll die fast. She shook her head, eyes narrowing just slightly. No, she said. You will? The arena's first shift came without warning, a tectonic lurch that made the ground fold inward like origami under stress. Ellie didn't flinch. She had already clocked the micro-tremors humming through the subfloor 2 seconds before they manifested. She stepped back just enough to avoid the razor-cracked ledge now yawning open beside her. To the casual viewer, she looked lucky, but luck had never been her companion. Just precise, indifferent math. Druin roared again, but it was for the crowd, not her. He slammed a fist into the metal spire next to him, denting it deeply, then ripped the structure free, with a wet screech of alloy. Somewhere, a camera drone swooped in to capture his silhouette against the shimmering gravity field, dripping with bravado and structural shrapnel. "Face me, human!" he shouted, voice booming through multiple throat chambers. Ellie didn't respond. She walked sideways, calm, eyes flicking upward to a relay node glinting above the arena rim. It pulsed every 7 seconds. Synchronization lag. That meant the distortion dome had a minor blind spot at quadrant 4. Noted. ZXDHHH's voice oozed into the air, a performance smeared in delight. Ah, the human circles. A traditional prey maneuver. Observe how she calculates her final moments. The crowd squealed, chirped, and emitted unsettling pheromones. Betting feeds lit up in 1,000 currencies. Druin was now favored at 32,000 to 1. Ellie's projected survival time had dropped to 17 seconds. A polite number. Druin advanced, dragging his makeshift weapon across the ground. Sparks spat out, briefly igniting a filament of atmosphere that hadn't quite settled after the last terrain cycle. The arena was still reconfiguring. Spires rising, gravity pockets blooming like invisible jellyfish in the air. He hurled the chunk of metal. Ellie ducked beneath it. Not hurried, not theatrical. Her body folded at the hips like a hinge, the projectile missing her by centimeters and embedding itself into a pillar that promptly exploded. Shrapnel danced in every direction. One piece nicked her cheek. Blood welled. Blood. ZXDHHH cried. Glorious opening carnage. She bleeds red. How quaint. She touched her cheek, looked at the red on her glove. Noted, she said. Druin grinned wide, tusks wet with spittle. You run well, human. It will make the tearing sweeter. Ellie moved again, diagonal, weaving through collapsing structures and glitching terrain. She wasn't dodging. She was mapping. Each step refined her mental overlay of the arena, where footing held, where gravity shifted by 0.02 g, where temperature rose near the acidic vents. This wasn't a battlefield. It was a puzzle. And puzzles didn't care about size. She slipped behind a thin wall. Druin charged through it a second later, confident, loud, and exactly where she wanted him. She tapped her right temple. A shimmer of heat bloomed above the arena. A rail drone, activated. Silent. Legal only under Clause 17A. Assistant allowed if personally calibrated, and declared non-lethal in intent. The Empire had written it to allow dramatic lighting effects. Ellie had used it to nest a rail spike. The drone pivoted. She closed her left eye. Visual overlay activated. Angles snapped into view like wires drawn over space. Druin had no idea. He thought she was still hiding. And, in a way, she was. She raised her rifle, not to fire, but to measure. The air here was dense. Not earth dense, but something humid and unstable. She calculated drop rate, particulate interference, and magnetic flux. A standard sniper would have missed. She wasn't standard. Druin emerged again, bounding over rubble, laughing, high on dominance and velocity. He raised both arms, ready to smash her. She stood still. Time did not slow. That was a myth. But Ellie's body, honed by endless hours of training and engineered neural threading, moved at the pace of cold logic. Her breath regulated. Fingers twitched in sequence. The trigger pull was only 2.2 millimeters. But in that movement, an entire war unfolded. The drone fired. The spike didn't aim for his heart. It wouldn't have mattered. Instead, it curved, subtle, impossible, ricocheting off the inner edge of gravitational shear just before impact. A maneuver no machine would attempt. A human, though. A sniper from a mudball planet with ballistic ancestry written in blood and brass. She made the shot feel inevitable. The spike struck Druin's right knee, not to maim, but to torque. His leg twisted outward, his momentum faltered, and he stumbled. A gasp rippled through the arena. Not shock, confusion. Ellie moved. She vaulted over low cover, sprinted beneath a collapsing tower, and rolled to a ledge opposite the blast crater. From there, she could see his weight shift wrong, his posture now imperfect. Slight, but everything in war was slight. He turned to look at her. She met his eyes for the first time. There was no hatred, just clarity. I warned you, she said, almost gently. He roared and charged. Ellie stepped forward, dropping low, left elbow bracing against her knee, right hand settling the rifle. The grip read her pulse, synced with her nervous system. This time she didn't hesitate. She didn't need another spike. One shot, just one, from this distance, at this angle, through 3 active distortions and a wind tunnel redirecting microdust. The odds of success were so low they dropped off the betting feeds entirely. She fired. The bullet whispered through space, slipped past every variable, curved once, twice, kissed a flicker of ionized wind. and disappeared into Droon's thorax just below the fourth rib, into a cluster of neural ganglia that most medical scans didn't even acknowledge. A soft spot, vulnerable, forgotten. He took 2 steps, staggered, fell to his knees. The crowd froze. Droon reached out, not to strike, but as if remembering something. Then his head lowered, tusks touching the floor, and he was still. Ellie stood, lowered her rifle. Silence reigned. ZXDHHH's voice came slow, confused, as if translated from a culture that didn't yet have a word for disbelief. The human has struck a mortal blow. Lights dimmed. A ripple of panic began in the diplomatic box seats. Ellie looked up. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm. Rules of engagement, she said, are only suggestions. Droon's body hit the arena floor with a seismic finality. Not flailing, not screaming, just a dull, complete collapse, as though the air had been quietly siphoned from his lungs and the world. The dust rose slow around him, unhurried, reverent, and for one stretched second, even the sky above the Galactic Coliseum forgot how to blink. Ellie Tran exhaled once through her nose. The arena didn't move. Neither did the crowd. In the sudden vacuum of sound, it was only the faint whine of the rail drone powering down that reminded anyone a shot had even been fired. The spike hadn't exploded. There had been no blood geyser, no thunderclap, just a whisper of velocity doing what centuries of arrogance couldn't, ending inevitability. The silence broke at last, not with applause, but with a shriek of a translator collapsing under semantic confusion. Then came the crowd, waking like a stunned animal. Some cheering, some howling, others emitting panic pheromones strong enough to trigger evacuations in 3 seating zones. A gelatinous ambassador fainted entirely and had to be spooned into a containment tube. In the upper box, Earth's diplomatic envoy set down his glass very gently. He looked at the odds board, still frozen, blinking 0% beside Ellie's name, and smiled without mirth. The Zelvian admiral beside him was hyperventilating into a bag of his own tail scales. "You knew," the admiral rasped. "We warned you," Darnellvich replied. "And you made us mascot." On the field, Droon's body began to twitch. Med drones launched automatically, but Ellie raised one hand, calm, almost polite, and they stalled midair, awaiting override. "It's not cruelty," she said aloud, to no one in particular. "It's just that he doesn't know he's dead yet." Behind her, the arena lit up with emergency comms. Diplomats barked into translators. Officials rushed to sanitize the narrative. A decision would have to be made. Was his victory legal, or was it an insult to tradition so grotesque it warranted annulment? After all, Earth wasn't meant to win. Earth was here for morale. The AI steward the arena, a polite, faceless voice woven from diplomatic compromise, finally spoke. Combatant Droon is unresponsive. Neural death confirmed. Combatant Ellie Tran is declared victor by single-shot incapacitation. The crowd didn't cheer. It didn't know how. ZXDHHH, still broadcasting in a dozen languages, stammered, and thus concludes our improbable historic match. Let us remember this moment as one of unexpected educational value. Ellie ignored the theatrics. She stepped toward Droon's body, kneeling just beside him. Her fingers touched his tusk, not mockingly, not even with triumph, just acknowledgement. In her world, the dead got a moment. That was all. She stood again, walked toward the exit ramp with no fanfare, boots scuffing against still settling dust. Her rifle hung loose at her side now, its purpose expended, and for the first time in days, she let her spine sag just slightly. Behind her, chaos reigned. Panic, recalculations. Entire departments within the Galactic Defense Assembly began redrafting threat assessments. Earth's profile jumped 12 clearance tiers. Trade representatives scheduled emergency talks. Military advisors whispered the one word no one wanted to say out loud: recruitment. A new classification would soon emerge in confidential circles. Precision-limited primates combat class, but would take years before they admitted the truth. They had never understood Earth. They had measured humans by limb count, by surface war casualties, by chemical endurance. They had studied Earth's weaponry and dismissed it as primitive. They had never studied Earth's patience. The walk to the prep corridor was longer than it had been on the way in. Not physically, just emotionally. Every footstep echoed differently. Not because of her, but because now every camera was on her back. And she didn't care. Kilvith Erwin met her at the threshold, clutching his clipboard like a shield against reality. He looked paler than usual, which was difficult for a species with semi-transparent skin. His voice trembled like a curtain in a nervous breeze. Miss Tran, the victory is, well, it's not entirely anticipated. You're welcome, she said, brushing past. He turned, scurrying behind her. There will be consequences. There always are. Your victory has altered the entire perception of Earth. Diplomats are preparing statements. Some worlds are calling for audits. Others are requesting joint training programs. Ellie raised an eyebrow. They want our secrets now. They want to know what kind of species produces you. She stopped, turned. On Earth, she said flatly, I'm not even the best. Kilvith swallowed, or simulated it. She didn't wait for a response. The prep room was empty now, sanitized, her gear already tagged for transport. She took the gloves off slowly, folded them, slid them into her coat, then looked up at the mirror across the wall, where her reflection stared back with the calm stillness of someone who had once fought wars no one filmed and bled in countries no one cared to name. She whispered to it, almost apologetically. 17 seconds, she said. Right on time. A soft chime signaled transport arrival. The doors opened. Her ship sat idling on the dock, small and unremarkable. Inside there was a bench, a cup warmer, a recording of rain from her home city. And silence. Blessed silence. She stepped inside without looking back. Behind her, the arena exploded with speculation. The headlines were already being written. One shot, one human, one empire shaken. But Ellie didn't read headlines. She just pulled off her boots, slid into the seat, and closed her eyes. The galaxy would talk. She didn't have to say a word.